The mansion that overlooked the city was silent the night the news came. Inside its marble halls, a mother collapsed onto the cold floor, her sobs echoing through chandeliers that once glittered with joy. The doctors had delivered the sentence without mercy. Her daughter, her only child, had just 7 days left to live. No treatment, no miracle drug, no operation could save her. 7 days, that was all. The millionaire's empire, the cars, the estates, the endless wealth, all meant nothing now. Her little girl, pale in her bed, whispered one plea, "Mama, I don't want to be afraid." And with those words, the world around them shattered. For days, staff moved quietly through the house, speaking only in hushed tones. The mother, Eleanor, dismissed most of them, unable to stand the sight of pity in their eyes. But one man remained, James, a black employee who had worked in the mansion's gardens and maintenance for years. He was soft-spoken, with strong hands and a gaze that carried both sorrow and wisdom. While others looked away, James looked directly at Eleanor and her daughter. Not with pity, but with something she couldn't name, something that felt like hope. It was James who found Eleanor in the garden late that night, her hands trembling as she clutched a glass of wine. "Ma'am," he said gently, "your daughter doesn't need more doctors now. She needs memories to hold on to. She needs joy to push back the fear." Eleanor, who hadn't spoken more than broken words in days, looked at him as if he had spoken madness. "Joy?" she whispered bitterly. "How can there be joy when death is at our door?" But James didn't flinch. "Because joy," he said, "is the only thing death can't steal." The next morning, James appeared in the child's room carrying a small wooden box. Inside were feathers, stones, and folded paper. The little girl blinked weakly. "What is that?" she asked, her voice fragile. James knelt by her bed. "This," he said, "is a treasure box. Every day for the next 7 days we'll put something inside, something that makes you smile, even for a moment. When you feel afraid, we'll open it, and you'll remember you are more than the sickness. You are alive." The child's lips curled into the first true smile her mother had seen in weeks. Day 1 began with laughter. James tied a red ribbon around his head and pretended to be a warrior, challenging the little girl to a pillow fight. She giggled, weak but radiant, clutching her small pillow like a shield. Eleanor stood in the doorway, tears running silently down her face, watching her daughter fight and laugh as though death was nowhere near. At the end of the day, they placed the ribbon into the treasure box. "A warrior's gift," James said. "So you'll always remember you are braver than you think." On the second day, James took the little girl outside to the garden. The sun was gentle and the roses swayed in the breeze. He placed a crown of flowers on her head, and she clapped her hands in delight. "Queen of the garden," he announced loudly, bowing before her. Eleanor, sitting close by, whispered, "She hasn't felt the sun in weeks." That night they placed a single rose petal into the box. "For beauty," James explained softly, "so you'll remember the world still has wonders, no matter what." Each day grew heavier as her daughter's body weakened further, yet each day James found a way to create magic. On the third day, he played a lullaby on an old harmonica he carried from his childhood. On the fourth, he showed her how to fold paper cranes, her tiny hands fumbling but determined. On the fifth, he told her stories of his grandmother, who always said that when the body grows weak, the soul grows wings. The little girl's eyes sparkled and she whispered, "Will I grow wings too?" James smiled, tears in his own eyes. "Yes, and they will be the brightest of all." Eleanor, once unable to breathe without choking on despair, found herself sitting beside James each night, listening, crying, and slowly beginning to smile. She saw her daughter's last days transformed, not into a countdown of suffering, but into a series of living moments stitched together by kindness. On the 6th day, when the girl could barely whisper, James held her hand and asked, "What should we put in the treasure box today?" With trembling lips, she said, "My love," and though invisible, they placed it there, their hands covering the little box together. On the 7th day, as dawn broke, Eleanor held her daughter close, tears soaking her nightgown. James was there too, kneeling at the bedside, the box between them. The girl whispered one final request. "Mama, when I'm gone, promise me you'll open the box whenever you feel sad." And remember, I laughed. I wasn't afraid. With that, she slipped away, her tiny hand resting in her mother's. Eleanor sobbed uncontrollably. Yet through the grief, she realized her daughter's final days were not filled with sorrow, but with light. After the funeral, Eleanor sat alone in her room, the treasure box before her. She opened it and saw the ribbon, the petal, the crane, the notes, all the gifts James had given her daughter. She wept, not just for her loss, but for the beauty one man had given her child when no wealth or doctor could. She sought James in the garden, fell to her knees, and whispered through tears, "You gave my daughter a miracle, not of time, but of love, and for that I will never forget you." In the weeks that followed, the mansion remained heavy with silence, but it was a different kind of silence, one of remembrance rather than despair. Eleanor carried the treasure box everywhere she went, clutching it to her chest when grief threatened to crush her. Each object, simple yet powerful, spoke louder than the diamonds and gold that filled her estate. The ribbon reminded her of laughter, the petal of beauty, the crane of hope, and the harmonica of peace. And more than all of it, the box reminded her of the man who had given her daughter something priceless in her final days: dignity and joy. Eleanor had been born into privilege, raised in circles where people of wealth rarely looked twice at those who served them. Yet she found herself drawn to the garden more and more, seeking James's quiet presence. He never tried to comfort her with empty words. He worked with steady hands, trimming roses and pulling weeds, his silence filled with respect. One afternoon she asked softly, "Why did you do it, James? Why give so much of yourself for a child who wasn't yours?" He paused, leaning on his shovel, his eyes distant. "Because when I was a boy, my little sister died. She was afraid every day until the end. I swore if I ever saw another child walk that road, I would make sure they knew joy instead of fear." Tears welled in Eleanor's eyes as she realized that James had carried his own wound for years, and in helping her daughter, he had healed a part of himself too. She placed her hand gently on his arm and whispered, "You gave me back my daughter, even as I lost her. You gave me the gift of memory without regret." For the first time, James's strong composure faltered, and he allowed himself a small, trembling smile. Soon, word of Eleanor's story spread beyond the mansion walls. The press caught wind of the tale, how a millionaire's child had lived her final days laughing because of the kindness of a humble employee. At first, Eleanor dreaded the headlines, but she quickly realized this was more than gossip. This was a message the world needed. She called a press conference, not to flaunt her grief, but to honor James. Standing tall, her voice steady, though her heart trembled, she declared, "No wealth could save my daughter. But this man," she gestured toward James, "gave her something more precious than life itself: love, courage, and peace." The hall erupted in murmurs, cameras flashing wildly as James stood frozen, overwhelmed by the recognition. Eleanor continued, her voice breaking, "I want the world to know that greatness does not come from money, nor from status, but from the humanity we show when it matters most. My daughter died with joy in her heart because of him." Tears streamed down her face, and many in the room wept with her. For once, James was not invisible. He was seen, honored, and celebrated. That very night, Eleanor made a decision that would change both their lives forever. She called James into her late daughter's room, where the treasure box still sat on the nightstand. "I want to start a foundation," she said, her voice trembling with determination. "One that brings joy to children who are facing what my daughter faced. And I want you to lead it, James." His eyes widened, his hands instinctively lifting as if to refuse. "Ma'am, I'm just a gardener." "I don't know how to lead anything like that." Eleanor smiled through tears. "You already did. You gave her more in 7 days than I gave her in a lifetime of riches. Who else could I trust with this?" James tried to protest again, but Eleanor would not hear it. She placed the box in his hands. "This is no longer just a memory. It's a mission. Together we'll bring joy to every child who's afraid, and every mother who feels helpless. We'll turn my daughter's last days into the beginning of something beautiful." James's fingers trembled as he held the box, understanding the weight of what she was asking, but also feeling the fire of purpose ignite in his heart. The foundation launched quietly at first, with Eleanor funding it and James working tirelessly to build its heart. He visited hospitals, sat with children, and taught them how to make treasure boxes of their own. He tied ribbons on their heads, folded paper cranes, and played his harmonica, filling sterile rooms with laughter. Mothers wept just as Eleanor once had, watching their children find courage where they thought none could exist. Eleanor herself accompanied him often, not as a millionaire seeking praise, but as a grieving mother seeking healing through giving. The world took notice. Soon, donations poured in from families touched by the story, from strangers who believed in the mission, from doctors who saw the difference joy could make. What began as one man's act of kindness grew into a movement that spanned cities and countries. James, once a gardener, became known as the keeper of joy, and Eleanor as the mother who shared her daughter's legacy. Together, they carried the light of one child's short life into countless others. Yet for Eleanor, the most sacred moment always came in the quiet. When the world was asleep and she opened her daughter's treasure box once more, she would trace the ribbon, touch the petal, hold the crane, and listen to the faint sound of the harmonica in her memory. And every time, without fail, she would whisper into the night, "You weren't afraid, my love." And because of James, neither am I.